Welcome to the Phillip Wylie Show. Take a look behind the curtain of professional hacking and hear compelling discussions with guests from diverse backgrounds who share a common curiosity and passion for challenges and their job. And now, here's your host, offensive security professional, educator, mentor, and author, Phillip Wylie.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Phillip Wylie Show. I'm very excited to have Anthony Pillitiere joining me today from Horizon 3. He's one of the co-founders and the brains behind this phenomenal product, NodeZero. So he's got a really cool story. I look forward to him sharing it. We hear so many cases where products coming out of Israel have former Unit 8200 and those type of capabilities, but we're really not hearing that as much in the US. I know there's others, but people really don't seem to use that to market their products. And so I think it's great that we have a product here in the US, and I know there's others, but that are using those kind of capabilities that are similar to what you would see in Israel. So I look forward to,
it's a strategy that they've figured out, and they rinse and repeat, and it's been doing really good for them. They've got a lot of really cool stuff, a lot of great capabilities coming out of that organization, and we're doing the same thing. We have, the folks coming out of the U.S. Special Operations organizations go into some pretty incredible capabilities. It's just a different flow. We're taking advantage of it now too.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to see because I used to work for a company called Point 3 Federal, and they had like one division of their company. Point 3 was just more educational. Point 3 Federal was providing training to the DoD, and they also did some exploit development as well, which is kind of cool to hear of some of these other companies that are doing exploit development. You really don't think about that, but just taking folks with like your background and the background of some of the people at Horizon 3 and creating those type of capabilities.
Yeah, we tend to call ourselves the quiet professionals. So like marketing ourselves, we try not to do that. I think some of that stuff's changing now. I don't like, over rotating to the background, but it is compelling, and it is, it gives us the right bona fides that we do know what we're talking about, and we're driving things from a set of expertise. But I try not to over rotate. It feels icky.
Yeah.
Quiet professional is the best way to kind of describe it.
I think it's a good story we're sharing because you think about, folks that work for other product companies, or they're working in security somewhere else, that maybe they got a computer science degree. They've came in non-traditional ways, taking some cybersecurity courses, and, typical defense within organizations is not a do or die type of thing. But then when you bring in folks with the military and government backgrounds, sometimes it is do or die, that the situations. And so kind of the way you guys learn is kind of, I don't know, it's just there's no option for failure.
Yeah, it's an interesting notion that, do or die, no fail. I think from like an offensive standpoint, on the defensive side in industry, we still need to think of it that way, in that, the old adage that attackers need to get it right once and defenders need to get it right 100% of the time. Otherwise, we've missed something that allows them to take advantage of us and, breach our organization or steal from us, or whatever the case may be. In the military, it's a much different, it's a different philosophy from, like, when you talk about cybersecurity and offensive security. The capabilities that we leverage and we use, I'm going to try and be cautious here, is very much a key component. The cyber domain is fairly new over the last, at the scale at which we're using it now, the ubiquity that the cyber domain has become a critical enabler to, what we're trying to accomplish for whatever mission. Every organization has a mission. But the capabilities that we're we're providing help. The what's the best way to kind of describe it? Help help us in accomplishing a mission, right? So in the commercial sector, it's about defending the here. Okay, here it is. Here's what I'm looking for. In private sector, cybersecurity is a cost center. In the military and in the protection of the nation, it is not a cost center. It is a key component of the mission. So there's two kind of different ways of looking at it. And we take these mindsets of how to operate in the cyber domain, and now we're bringing it into the commercial space and trying to raise the understanding that cybersecurity should not be looked at as a cost center, or shift the mindset from an executive and a business standpoint that these capabilities help protect you from losing major and significant business and revenue. If you look at some of the major breaches that have happened recently over the past 4 or 5 years, hey, I'm not talking to you, Siri. The amount of revenue that organizations have lost has just been significant, and it's hard to convince the business that this capability, having an offensive understanding and really prioritizing cybersecurity, it's been really difficult to do on the private sector. So huge difference between the two worlds is kind of what I'm getting at. Kind of roundabout way of saying that.
And it makes sense too, also because people need to look at that. You do disaster recovery drills, and you have documentation on business continuity. This is part of that, having the availability of those digital resources you need to do to run your business. And you figure like ransomware, denial of service attacks, and any kind of major breaches and stuff cause loss of productivity. And so that needs to people need to realize that that's part of it.
Yeah, I think about like the NHS breach. That was a third-party breach. You look at, hell, you could even take, and this is not like, this is slightly outside of cybersecurity, but not really. The three key pillars of cybersecurity are confidentiality, integrity, and availability. I think a lot of people forget about the availability in the CIA triad. That is a key component of it. If a malformed packet, whether it can disrupt your business operations, security is about risk, and it's risk to the business as a whole. It's risk to the mission, whatever it can, etc. And if you don't prioritize appropriately, and you put one of those components of that triad under the line, then you're taking risks that just need to make sure you understand you're taking. Hopefully during this conversation we can maybe get into some of that, and that's like the difference between a practitioner's look at risk and an executive or the businesses or the board or whatever, their look at risk and where that ownership lies. It's a lot of the mentorship I've given to practitioners is you don't own the risk. You own the identification of it, you own the mitigation of it as best as possible. But there are some times when choices have to be made. And when you zoom all the way up to like board level and the executive level, saying we're not going to replace that Windows 7 box because the cost of that versus the revenue that we're generating from it, the cost to overcome those challenges just don't matter. So understanding the environment from the attacker's perspective and continuously addressing that risk, that's the compromise. There is no perfect cybersecurity posture. There is no perfect, risk reduction down to zero. You can't do that. It's not a thing. So hopefully we can get into some of that and some of those conversations I've had. It's a super interesting way to look at it. And I had a struggle with it, as a practitioner throughout my career, about we got to fix this. This is causing problems. This is going to cause problems. commanders or generals or, some strategic decisions said, well, that's not that important. But I, as a practitioner, like, yeah, but it's really, really important.
Yeah, that's, as from being a pen tester, one of the biggest things that's frustrating is, I've done pen tests for customers where I was able to get command line access through SQL injection from the internet, give the pen test report to the customer, and the customer comes back, oh, we knew about this. It's just a development box. But I got from the internet into your environment. I was able to dump the password hash. It was password all lowercase and the number 1. So there's a probably good possibility that they were using that same password across this other servers. And I had access to that from the internet. And the scope of the project was only for that web application. Couldn't go past that. So, real world, a threat actor, there are no rules of engagement. They go for whatever, and and they don't care if you have a risk acceptance either.
So common. So common. The things that we're finding and the trends that we're seeing over the last, we've done what, 80,000 times pen tests over the last 5 years, I think is the latest number, 75,000, 80,000. Credential reuse, finding credentials. It's just incredible how many organizations don't really understand the risks that they're taking, and totally hats off to the offset community and the pen testers who've been trying to like bring an understanding about this. There's always been a challenge about the translation of security posture to how that relates to business risk. There's a huge gap between the practitioner and business outcomes that I don't think we've quite solved as an industry. That's super challenging. And I think, that's where like GRC came from, this attempt to governance, risk, and compliance, this attempt to put the right numbers in front of business leaders, abstracting the deep technical stuff underneath it. And I say that because, I interviewed a GRC lady, had been doing governance, risk, and compliance in financial services for 25 years. And she didn't even know what a CVE was.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, that feels weird. Is that right? That doesn't sound right to me. That feels off. But the more I thought about it, it's like the intent is to figure out how to translate it strictly into business, into the business language. And it's hard. It's hard. I don't think anybody really has the solution. Hopefully what we're building, and some of the capabilities that we're driving towards in our organization is going to help solve some of those. But it's a really, really hard problem to solve. And it's like this in-between problem. If you think about, like, what does a product manager do in a technology organization? A product manager's responsibility is to understand the business implications of this new solution that we want to build and being able to describe it so that we can decide whether or not we want that's going to bring the right amount of revenue, blah, 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 business stuff. Yeah. As a practitioner and an engineer, I want to build some cool stuff, and this is going to be really cool. It comes up to the product management and, the leadership of a product team to figure out, is that the right thing to build, and is it going to bring the right revenue? And it's this translation from the tech side to the business side that is, and we need to find the right in between. And GRC was supposed to kind of be that in between to translate that. I don't think it's solved at this. I just don't think it's solved.
Yeah,
I've seen too many organizations like do it very badly and make very bad decisions, and we've low-code execution all around the world, and it's been, I don't think it's solved yet.
Yeah, in recent years, I'm seeing more focus on risk. So do you think there's any promise there that would help with the being able to communicate with the business groups, the board, and so forth?
Yeah, because the challenge has been the way that we measure that is like vulnerability scanning, and we take this authoritative understanding of all the things as much as possible. Vulnerability scanning, again, it's flaws as well and its gaps. And it's this authoritative understanding of an environment and all the hosts. And we take these theoretical understandings about these CVEs and these risks, the CVEs and these weaknesses that are discovered. And we get the long list of purples, oranges, reds, and blues. And then we just send that up. And now we turn that into, through some mechanism, a number, a risk score. And people align like ALE, take all your like CISSP, Security Plus type jargon, all around calculating risk to then try and present it to an organization to make decisions. But that you're starting with this flawed set of data in vulnerability scanning and the theoretical notion of likelihood and impact. You'll hear me say this. Watch any video that I've done or any talk that I've given. Every risk is boiled down to likelihood and impact. And right now, there's nothing in the stack that's going to give you likelihood and impact. The only way that we've done that is through pen testing and red teaming. Even like you try and do it with like the tabletop exercises, and it's like, well, if I can do this, then I can pivot to here, and I can find credentials about this, and I know that we do credential reuse here, so that's going to be a problem. And I think the tabletop exercises are the right like gap filler, but we need to get to a more algorithmic mechanism to really show likelihood and impact, and that's the future of cybersecurity, and it's all the things that pen testers in the OffSec world has been driving for a really long time.
So since you do autonomous pen testing using NodeZero, so what was kind of the problem you were trying to resolve with NodeZero?
Yeah, I'll tell the founder's story. It's a pretty cool story. I spent 21 years in the military. Most of that time was in what we call black world organizations, but it's just selectively manned units with highly sensitive mission sets. And my twilight position was as the Deputy Chief Technology Officer for the Joint Special Operations Command. And while I was there, cybersecurity was one of my responsibilities, and I met up with the team. And everybody talks about, you see the budget for the military, big budgets, billions of dollars, but there's not a lot of people. So resources are thin there. We have to make decisions. So I went to the team and I said, what are our priorities, and what are we focused on? What are we driving towards? And the team listed 500 things. And with this small team, they were managing the tools. They were managing the administration of all the tools and deploying new capabilities, all the reporting, the CCERT, the SOC, they were doing all that, and they were bouncing back and forth between all these different components of it, struggling to really defend the network, and struggling to really prioritize. So everything was a priority, and if everything is a priority, then nothing is a priority. So okay, we brought in the NSA Red Team, super good crew, very, very professional, really good at what they do, and the whole organization did really good. When you do a red team engagement, you're talking about people, process, technology, and we did really well. But they found some things an attacker could take advantage of today. I said, perfect. There's our priorities. Let's focus on those. Let's get those fixed. Let's find strategies and policies to prevent those types of things from happening again. NSA team, can you come back in 3 months, verify that we fixed those, and then dive into the next set of things? You said it yourself that you did a pen test and you found some stuff, but it was very narrowly focused on this concept of the crown jewels. And we use it all the time. A lot of business leaders are using crown jewels. I can't stand that, because what that gives an indication is that attackers are only going to attack our clouds. We in the OffSec world know that that's not the case. We're we don't care about your scope. And, attackers don't care about your scope. Attackers don't care about your policies and your rules of engagement. They're going to find these paths through things that you're not paying attention to. So when we say our crown jewels, attackers are over here digging into things that you're not paying attention to, right? So assessing the entire environment as a whole is super, super important, but it's just not possible. So I said, we'll open the scope next time you come, and can you verify that we fixed those, and then find the next set of things to go dive into, so we can continue to expand our layers of defenses based on the attacker's perspective, based on the things a threat actor is actually going to take advantage of. And the NSA team laughed at me. They said, "No way, you don't have the budget, we don't have the resources, we'll maybe see you again. It'll take 3 months to coordinate. We'll see you again in a year and a half." I said, "Okay, fine." My entire career, this kind of goes into kind of my origin story, but automation was kind of my thing. It was my shtick everywhere I went. And grew up as a network architect, network engineer, but like I said, we got limited resources. So everywhere I went, would find ways to build automations into things to help improve the mission, help improve efficiency. And then when I left, people would either pick it up and continue on with it, or they would improve upon it. So I took the information about kind of what was going on, just backstory, context, and I went to Snehal Antani, who is Horizon 3's co-founder. Snehal was IBM developer. He was the CIO at GE Capital. He was the CTO at Splunk. And then we brought him into the command to be the first CTO of the command. And he was driving like this, I hate the phrase digital transformation, but it was kind of what we were doing. He was driving this and helping translate from his technical expertise and understanding of the business world and from the outside, and then helping us translate that to generals, and was really driving a bunch of stuff forward. And he brought me up to be his deputy. So I took it to him and I kind of explained to him what was going on. And he said, "That's awesome. Can you automate that?" Just kind of threw it at me. Can you automate that? And I started laughing at him. I was like, "No, man, this is hacking shit. You can't. This is creativity and inference and orchestrating tools and taking data sets from data points from all these different things to decide." And as I'm explaining to him all the reasons why you can't, I was like, I don't know. Let me try. So I spent the next 45 nights after work laying in bed next to my wife trying to figure out, how do I create a system that organically maneuvers and makes the decisions the way a threat actor would. And I didn't want vulnerability scanning. That was, third of my career. I spent nearly 30 years in IT operation defense. That was like, I spent a third of that time saying that's a false positive, that's false. Really wasting time fixing things that didn't matter and not paying attention to the things that did matter. And I didn't want breach and attack simulation. It was a good step forward, a good evolution from like in our industry of moving towards what we needed to get to, but I think it fell short. I used a breach and attack simulation tool, and it just kind of became a paperweight for us and took a long time to use and configure and all these different components. And it really just focused, it was like packet replays and pre-scripted attack paths, and it focused on assessing the security tools versus the environment, the way an attacker, the way a pen tester, the way a red team. So I had been I was studying Dijkstra's algorithm at the time, getting into graph theory, graph analytics. As a network engineer, Dijkstra's like a big deal for us. Open source path first, and Azure P, and like all those understandings of how packets maneuver through an environment, Azure route. And I had some experiments that I was working with a graph database and Python, and so let me combine these two mindsets: automation, graph theory, and the old adage that attackers think in graphs and defenders think in lists. Let me take that literally and see what I come up with. And because I'm a super nerd, and I had Dell servers and FAS250 NetApp storage devices and SolarWinds and enterprise grade software, just because I wanted to wanted to play with it and get to know it because that's what I was managing and operating as part of my work. And it found something. I got it to work, and it ran in the environment in my house, and it found some things that I was not expecting it to find. And don't tell anybody. I know this is a podcast, and everybody's going to see it, but the first time I ran it, it broke out of my environment. My network overlapped with the ISP network, and I wasn't null routing everything, like RC 1918 to null. So it broke out, and it went out to the ISP, and I was finding like Cisco admin password on some of their infrastructure devices. And I was like, oh God, stop this before I get in trouble.
They fit.
And interestingly enough, and something in kind of a foreshadowing, nobody called, nobody investigated, nobody knew what was going on. So I had access to routers and switches in the ISP environment that I could have, done. So I had this, so it worked. It made decisions the way that an attacker would make decisions. Now this is proof of concept. There's a bunch of things we had. I am not a nation state guy. I've been doing IT operations, defense. I had to understand offense in order to understand what I was defending against, which is something I'd love to talk about later. But I wanted to get, a take from the guys who had been doing it, who were on my team. And I said, hey, check this thing out. And they're like, oh my God, there's something here. This is important. I said, okay, got validation from those guys that there's something there. I, as an IT operator and a defender across, governmental environments, like, man, I wish I would have had something like this to really focus on prioritizing what really matters. This is what an attacker is going to take advantage of, not just because some compliance rule. There's like 18 layers that are protecting us against attacking that particular thing, or it's not even present in the system. Like, this is highly targeted and focused prioritization. This is really important. Took that to Snehal and said, hey, it works. And he sent me a text message, and he loves to show everybody this text message. It'd say, congratulations, you won the lottery. We're going to start a company. Transitioned out of the military. That was July 2019. October 2019, we formally formed. I transitioned out shortly after that, and, hired on a bunch of folks from the organization who had left to go do work in pen testing firms and take their skills and move them to the private sector. And I brought them on. They decided to leave their very high paying push jobs, doing the same things over and over and over again when they do their pen tests, because they're finding the same things, to take this risk with us and, drive this new way of looking at risk, a new way of looking at cybersecurity. And here we are, it's almost 5 years now. We're doing really, really, really well. We're changing the industry. We're building a following. We're helping organizations really prioritize what matters. And it's like super important work. And it's all based on this notion that what pen testers have been trying to show for a really long time is something that is really important, and it makes a difference. We're just making it accessible to more organizations. And it's super cool work, and it's super cool to see the growth that we've seen and the teammates that we have and the way that we're driving the product to really focus on the core value of offense-driven defense. It's super exciting, super exciting.
Yeah, I think that's great. And when I first saw what NodeZero could do, I didn't think that was possible yet, because I'd worked in an organization where we had like a Python wrapper script that executed all these different tools, and it would take that data, export it, and then import it into Nessus. You run a Nessus vulnerability scan, run like Eyewitness to get some screen captures of some Windows services, web services, to see if there was anything there. Sometimes it would die and didn't work, and you had to go back and manually restart it or skip that and move on to the Nessus scan. I just didn't really think that type of automation was available yet.
Yeah, I struggle to call it automation anymore. It's not automation anymore. It's this orchestration of all the different data sets from all the different tools and tactics and techniques that are leveraged when you're assessing an environment. And, it's the combinatorics that are made possible by very granularly modularizing, creating these small modules around tactics and techniques and tool outputs. It goes beyond just following a prescripted path, and we're finding things that like many layers deep of how the tool how NodeZero will organically maneuver and find things that pen testers likely could have found, but because of the breadth it can take across an organization. Remember, we talked about like pen testers come in and we focus them based on time and how much time and cost. We're going to focus them on our crown jewels, and it's like you're going to send these pen testers who are probably really good at what they do into this brick wall and say, see if you can get through this brick wall. And you got a week to do it, 2 weeks to do it, 3 weeks to do it, and you just keep setting out this brick wall. Meanwhile, ransomware, threat actors, insider threats, they have the ability to look spread out across the entire forest, through the trees, and chain these things together to. We don't have to hack in. We don't have to do these fancy exploits anymore. It's about finding credentials. It's about finding lateral movement. It's about finding credential reuse. It just blew my mind the amount of times we're able to leverage credential reuse in a lot of these organizations. And you can't tell me that most pen testers don't have like their initial kind of scripts that they've put together. We've taken that and then applied this kind of Markovian decision process flow on top of it to make it super easy for organizations to run it wholeheartedly, and then MSSPs and consultants and pen testers and red teams to use it as a force multiplying capability to go bigger, go faster, focus on the things that are super nuanced and super specialized and specific to the environments that they are in. It's changing the game, and it's super exciting to be a part of.
Yeah, and you can just see the time and manpower limitations to being able to get all this done. I used to work for a large bank, and for PCI, we would, with a team of 13, we might have gotten through half of the pen test we were supposed to do for the year. And then that doesn't even take in consideration web apps that need to be tested as well. And so we're just severely limited, and frequency is a big thing when it comes to pen testing. Doing it once a year leaves you open for a year.
364 days a year.
Yeah.
364 days. Yeah, I think about all the things that have come out like in between when like you run a thing, you have an engagement, people come in, and like new tactics come out, new CVEs come out, new weaknesses come out, new approaches come out. The organization, it's like the three-body problem of cybersecurity. You have, the internal environment's changing on a regular basis. IT ops, I know the types of not corner cutting and like password, PASSW0RD, Cisco, like, we're just going to set this up just to try it out and just make sure it works. And then we'll go back and I just need to be able to log in real fast.
Mm-hmm.
All those kinds of things. I know how IT operations work. I did it for 30 years. Those things are continuously changing. And there are bad practices because it's about moving fast. It's about providing capabilities to the organization and the business. We got to go fast. We got to get this stuff out. Cybersecurity becomes like this hindrance and this cost center, not just from a cost, like a financial standpoint, but becomes a cost center in time in order to make things, it's just a thing. We got to bet. IT ops organizations balance that risk. At least they think they are. The calculation that they're using to do that is a problem. So I know the costs, the way that IT op organizations work. So that from a three-body problem standpoint, you have the change of the inside environment. So this sprawl, corner cutting and all those, adding new capabilities, removing capabilities. A single line in an ACL accidentally put, allow any on top breaks your ACL, but you don't know unless you test it. All right, so you got continuous change on the inside. Then you got users on the inside who are doing things. So this is the IT ops folks. This is your regular users. This is, some of the insider threat, whether intentionally malicious or not. And then you have, obviously, you have the external the external side of this, which is the threat actors are always coming up with new ways. Software organizations are creating, making changes to their software that you're running on the inside, and those have new weaknesses and new, potential opportunities for threat actors to take advantage of. So this is like this three-body problem. If you don't know what a three-body problem is, it's a cosmology kind of physics problem where it's too difficult. It is impossible. I think it's actually been solved now, but to really understand the trajectory of three bodies in motion, celestial bodies in motion. And if you're not more granularly assessing the environment, your risk is raising up across that time period, because you're waiting to do the mitigation, you're waiting to reassess whether or not you fix something, you're ready to reassess what is the most recent risks that we've identified. When I say risks, I'm talking about from a pen test standpoint. What can an attacker take advantage of inside our environment? You got to wait a year to really understand what the new things are, or if you fixed what we found last year.
Yeah, so one of the other things to think about too, especially when you mentioned that Horizon 3's probably performed like over 80,000 pen tests, and one of the things practitioners gain is experience from doing all these pen tests. So what are some of the lessons learned from those 80,000 plus pen tests that have been used to help advance in the evolution of NodeZero?
Let's see. There's a lot. Attackers love credentials, and organizations struggle to really protect credentials. The fundamentals get missed a lot, and it's not because we don't know about the fundamentals. It's the sprawl of the organization, the size of, the amount of coverage that small IT ops team, or an IT ops and a defense team, or IT ops, a defense team, and a offensive team have to cover in an organization is just too much. Defenders rely on tools, but there's no mechanism to really know if their tools are doing what they're supposed to. This is where purple teaming came from. That notion that defenders have to leverage the capabilities that come from the tools in their stack, their SIEM, their SOAR, their EDRs, their name, the alphabet soup of tools that defenders have to put together. You get them spun up, but there's no validation on a continuous basis that they're doing what they're supposed to. So you got purple teaming became this thing where we got an offender sitting with a defender, and they're working very closely together to understand those components. And then you have breach and attack simulation, which was meant to kind of codify that and make that a programmatic approach to doing that, but it just kind of fell off. I haven't really seen breach and attack simulation really excel or break out as a capability. I think it's because it fell short on really the only people that could operate it were people with a lot of time and or offensive security experts who could put all this stuff together. Might just be, user experience, might just be, I don't know. I'm not, I'm not here to kind of ship any specific product or category except for vulnerabilities. Again, I think that's just me. But I lost my train of thought, but it's just been such a hard problem to solve. What was the question? I lost my train of thought. Where were we at?
Yeah, just just the lessons learned from over the 80,000 pen tests. Yeah.
Yeah. And then one of the big ones that came about, a lot of people ask us like, is the product is loud? can you adjust the not aggressiveness, but like the loudness level so that we can really start to tune things for, a threat actor maneuvering quietly and slowly. That notion, we want to put it in the product and we want to do that, but we have seen that most organizations get more value out of it being loud in order to help support the tuning of their tools. That not something that we've put in there yet. So when I say lesson learned, it's like use this capability and this push button threat actor that you can run at as many times as you want throughout your environment to like take on a component of that purple culture. I don't like the phrase purple team engagement. I think there's a lot of value in them. I think that's a stepping stone to like this purple culture, which is the continuous integration between the offensive world and the defensive world, where it far beyond where it has been. And like right now we do like purple team engagements or purple team exercises, and they're like the spot time where we bring them together temporarily to do very fine tune. And think like the advent of autonomous security and the advent, autonomous pen testing and the overarching, capability that we are bringing to the table, which is like autonomous security, is not getting away from enhancing and driving to the next phase, the next horizon of the purple team, the purple function, the purple culture, in a better direction. A lot of organizations don't have the capacity, the capability, or the capital to hire offensive security experts. They don't have it. A lot of large organizations do. The mid-market, some mid-size enterprise or even lower medium type enterprises, they don't have it either. They may do, annual plus or two times a year, maybe 3 times a year on a pen test, but it's not like part of their culture to do that. I'm hoping that we can kind of drive this notion that, one, offensive security is the future of cybersecurity. We need to focus there. 2, it is there are capabilities and possibilities now to do it more frequently, and you can really focus your resources on the things that matter so that your business can focus on the core value that they provide. So hope that answers your question. There was a lot of lessons there.
Yes.
There's a lot more too.
Well, we need to think of what you take some boutique pen testing firms, say they've been in business 10 years, and you think of the capabilities that they create, the different testing methodologies, because some of those companies were the first ones I heard assume breach come out of. But as they learn things with however many people they have, they apply that. But you just can't help but think when you do over 80,000 pen tests, what kind of lessons are being learned there? I mean, that's
and to be quite honest, what we need to do is we need to codify that. We need to codify those things, and it's even focus on product, we can focus on driving the business. What we're shifting to now is, as we continue to grow, and we're in a huge like growth stage right now in the company. The community side of it is going to be significant, and luckily I got a really amazing personality from the OffSec world named Phil Wylie, who's going to help us with that, and drive some of that. Those lessons learned are important for the community to understand, and they're important for organizations to have available. So I think one of the things we'll do is put together those in a regular report, analysis report that we can put out every year to really highlight those, and it'll be super important and a credible source for the offset community to leverage and lean on as they're building their reports, as they're figuring out better ways to translate the work that they're doing to their customers and their clients to help highlight that. So I think that'll be a fun and important project we can work on.
Yeah, sounds fun. Look forward to it. So you kind of mentioned earlier, so I wanted to come back and circle back around. You wanted to touch on the defensive side again, so I want to kind of remind you of that so you could share whatever thoughts you had there.
Yeah, the when I hate social media. Can't stand it. It's a devil. My daughter, she goes into the doom scroll on not TikTok. She doesn't do TikTok, but on YouTube. But in any case, so the only reason I have a LinkedIn is because because I'm a business. That's just something you got to do as a business leader. And when we first started the company, I started this like unofficial survey to anybody who wanted to link up with me on LinkedIn. And I don't use LinkedIn like other people do, and I want to have meaningful conversations. I want to have meaningful connections, and anybody who was in cybersecurity, I would send them a message. They would ask to connect, or I would ask to connect to them, and would say something to the effect of, "Hey, I'm TonyP. Thanks for reaching out. Love to connect. I like to have meaningful conversations here, so I usually start the conversation with meaningful connections. I'll usually start the conversation with a question. And if they're in defense, I would ask, how much meaningful time do you spend studying the tools, tactics, techniques, and procedures of the offensive world to really understand how that works in collaboration with the defensive capabilities that are out there? And hundreds of responses. I'll say somewhere between 300 and 500 responses. I got 3. I hope that this is not a true assessment of the defensive world, but it was like very constant. I got 3 responses from folks saying that they spent any meaningful time. Everybody, all the other ones were like, I want to, I've done a little bit of study, but not like using the tools, working with the tools or the tactics, really diving deep. But the sentiment was like, I focus on my tools. I focus on the defensive tools, and I'm tuning them, and I'm working on that side of it. So, okay, there's that. Hundreds of responses from offensive security practitioners, offensive security folks. 100% of those responses were, I spend quite a bit of my time focusing and understanding the defensive capabilities out there because that's what I am going to be trying to maneuver around. These are the things that are going to prevent me from accomplishing my mission. So yes, I absolutely spend a lot of time on this. And that like bifurcation, that like dichotomy between the two worlds was super interesting to me. And I knew that what we were doing was going to help lift the black magic fog that is around cybersecurity, offensive security, because we're not like hiding the tools and the tactics that we're using. As a matter of fact, you can look and you can recreate every attack path by looking at the action log, because it is a key component of understanding what it is that you're defending against. Education was a big part of what I wanted to build into this as we were building it from the ground up. And I want to help the defensive world have a better grasp, a better foundation around what's going on from an offensive standpoint. I don't want it to be like siloed into this, this very small sect of of people who are just, they're emulating the threat actors. I don't want that. I want the defenders to have a very deep and technical understanding of what they're actually defending against. It's like saying, as a network engineer, I don't really need to understand subnet masking, right? Don't need to understand. That's not a good way to correlate it. I don't need to understand like the RFCs for some of these protocols. When you get to a certain level, yeah, you got to start somewhere, and you got to start at the the higher levels of it and get things implemented and that kind of stuff. But as you grow and as you mature as a network engineer into a network architect, and those kinds of things, getting deeper into what's actually going on is super important for you to progress, and you to really get a strong grasp of the foundation of what's going on in your world. And I feel very strongly the same way about defending the environment, and that correlation between the defensive capability and the offensive capability, I feel like it's just not there. I feel like there's a significant amount of reliance on the tools and the capabilities that are out there. And if those things aren't tuned right, then I feel like the defenders, tie one hand behind their back if they don't understand the tactics, the low-level tactics of what's going on. So I hope that my unofficial survey was not as telling of what's actually going on. I hope it's better, but I have a feeling that it's pretty close, and that scares me and that bothers me. So I want to help overcome that.
Yeah, that's great, and that's kind of what I try to evangelize when I'm talking about offensive security. Is you can be a better defender if you understand offensive security. If you're working in a SOC, if you understand malicious traffic, you're going to do a lot better job defending. But also think too that offensive security gets overlooked by CISOs and some of the executives sometimes, because when you really think about it, most people haven't worked in offensive security. It's a small percentage of people that spend any time in it. So if you hadn't worked in it, a lot of times I don't think they understand it. And so that's one of the things I really try to do is help people understand the need for that. It needs to be not just a checkbox. It needs to be taken seriously, because you think of football teams or any kind of combat sports, you're always studying your opponent and understanding how they work. Otherwise, you're going to fail miserably. So we need to do the same thing when it comes to cybersecurity.
Yeah, I completely agree. The way I kind of describe it to executives when I'm trying to do this translation and trying to use the analogy of, right now, what we've done is we've put roadblocks up in the middle of a field. These are all of our tools and our security controls. We don't, it's roadblocks up in the middle of a field at night without a flashlight. So we're just hoping that the coverage that we have prevents a threat actor from maneuvering through our environment. And it's not until you send an attacker at your defenses do you really know that your defenses can hold up to an attacker. And the more often you can do that with latest and up-to-date tactics and techniques and procedures and tools that are being leveraged out there, your risk, your unknown risk becomes just you can't calculate it, and it's super scary. One of my favorite quotes from one of our customers was, because I explained that to him, that concept, that analogy, and he said, you guys are like the spotlight at night to help us understand that our EDR is not covering the things that it's not covering everything. There's a gap between, say, our EDR and our endpoints and lights out capabilities. When I say lights out, like the server admin, HPILO, that kind of stuff, the iTracks. We have a gap there. We did not know that, and that gap led to, through these attack chains and these getting from likelihood of performing the exploitation all the way to impact on a regular basis, it's really helped him prioritize the fixing of that one thing that has reduced his significant risk on the inside, because we were able to show, the attacker's flow and the attacker's approach to how it's really, really just a cool transformation to see some of these organizations, use it. And yeah.
So yeah, we're getting down towards the end of the episode. Is there anything you'd like to share, or any closing remarks?
Yeah, we did a podcast the other day, and I didn't do the marketing thing, and I apologize, but I don't apologize. Check us out on our socials. Take a look at Horizon3.ai. What we're providing is not specifically for your community. This is not a replacement for pen testers. This is a force multiplier. And what we're doing is helping raise the bar and help organizations who don't have this capability really prioritize. Oh, there's a no. Prioritize what they're working on, what they're fixing, and what they're focusing on. And then organizations who do have an offensive capability, we're force multiplying them and helping them do things more efficiently and more effectively and more repeatably. So Okay, all that stuff's out of the way. I would say that what I have full out to thank this community and your community. Hold on one second. Enough for what it is that they've provided the world. And that's kind of corny, but it is absolutely true. And I really want to help amplify and shout from the rooftops and the mountaintops that this is the future of cybersecurity. The offensive understanding of an environment is the future of cybersecurity, and I want to help the industry drive in that direction. So looking forward to meeting folks at Black Hat. I won't be staying for DEF CON. I apologize. And then B-Sides and any of the other events that I can get to. I'm really looking forward to meeting folks and hanging out with them and talking shop and getting to the bits and bytes. So thank you. I really appreciate you having me on, brother.
Oh, it's an honor, and thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule. So I know you're a very, very busy person. So I appreciate that. I think the listeners are going to enjoy it. And as Tony said, if you're a Black Hat, come by the booth. I'll be there as well too. So thanks again.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you for listening to the Phillip Wylie Show. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. In the meantime, to learn more about Phillip, go to thehackermaker.com and connect with him on LinkedIn and Twitter at Phillip Wylie. Until next time.